humanity is on thin ice, and that ice is melting fast. As today's report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, details, humans are responsible for virtually all global heating over the last 200 years. The rate of temperature rise in the last half-century is the highest in 2,000 years. Concentrations of carbon dioxide are at their highest in at least 2 million years. The climate time bomb is ticking.
And with that, on the first day of spring, the last document of the 6th assessment report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is released. The report is the most comprehensive assessment of knowledge on climate change since the IPCC's last assessment in 2014. The report is divided into 3 parts, each produced by a different working group. The physical science basis of climate change is covered in the first part. The second part focuses on the impacts of climate change, adaptation, and vulnerability. The final part is all in on climate change mitigation. It appears that the world is running out of time to limit the worst impacts of climate change. Go figure. Also, that there is a need for immediate and sustained reductions in greenhouse gas emissions to limit the worst impacts of climate change. Who knew? Anyways, here are some key takeaways from the report. The world is already experiencing the effects of climate change, including more frequent and severe heat waves, droughts, and heavy precipitation events. The world is running out of time to limit the worst impacts of climate change. It is still possible to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, but only if there are immediate, rapid, and large-scale reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. The world must reach net zero emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases by around 2050 to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Also, the report highlights the need for adaptation measures to reduce the risks of climate change, including the development of early warning systems, improved infrastructure, and the protection of ecosystems. Further to our last segment on water woes, the Global Commission on the Economics of Water's report, Turning the Tide, presents a 7-point call to action of a sustainable and just water future that can be achieved by transforming the economics and restructuring the governance of water. The report marks the first time the global water system has been scrutinized comprehensively, and its value to countries, and the risks to their prosperity if water is neglected, have been laid out in clear terms. The report presents a 7-point call to action of a sustainable and just water future that can be achieved by transforming the economics and restructuring the governance of water. The 7 points. Manage the global water cycle with justice and equity. Adopt an outcomes-focused approach to water conservation. Cease underpricing water. Phase out subsidies in agriculture and water. Establish just water partnerships. Fortify freshwater storage systems. Reshape the multilateral governance of water.
The key insights of the report are, first of all, that all the countries in the world are absolutely interconnected around the water cycle. There's no one country that's going to solve this on their own.
What happens locally, whether it's a flood or drought or heat wave, reflects something that's going on globally. And the changes in the global hydrological cycle are going to impact all of us locally, wherever we are in the world.
We now, unfortunately, must recognize that we're changing the very source of freshwater, precipitation. We are changing the whole functioning of freshwater on planet Earth, which means that water must be recognized as a global common good.
Nola? Are you there? You're up, Nola.
Working. Information in detail. With the exception of Yajua, Taba, and possibly Makwata Island, Fiji-crested iguana populations on all other islands are barely detectable and are expected to become functionally extinct within the next few years without immediate action. Iguanas have become extirpated from several islands where they were present in the 1980s. Iguana habitat is continuing to be degraded due to goat grazing, presence of feral cat predators, intentional forest clearing and fires, and the spread of the invasive alien plant species. Although historic quantitative population data is not available for this lizard, it is estimated that the number of iguanas has declined by at least 80% over the last 40 years, based on the size of their range islands and the area of former forest. Threats. Fiji-crested iguanas are dependent on healthy beach and dry forests that are regarded as Fiji's most critically endangered habitat, and are under ongoing threat on most islands. Very few islands currently contain significant patches of healthy dry forest. Remnant populations of iguanas are threatened by the continuing degradation of remaining native forests resulting from clearing, burning, conversion to plantations and grassland, goat grazing, invasive alien plants, and village expansion and tourism development. Because Fiji crested iguanas are small in size, they are particularly vulnerable to predation by feral cats and perhaps invasive alien black rats. The impact of the recent introduction and spread of the invasive alien common green iguana in Fiji are not yet known for this species, but have been shown to have significant detrimental effects everywhere they have been introduced. Green iguanas are vastly more fecund and aggressive than native iguanas and may have significant effects on remnant small island populations. Native to 8 western dry forest islands in Fiji, including 2 islands in the Yasawa group, 4 islands in the Mamanuca group, 1 island off northern Viti Levu and Yajuataba Island. IUCN Red List category and criteria. Critically endangered. This has been Olay and Ollie K. Boomer with NOLA Comms for your climate change report coming from downtown Alberta.